Hey, Rocky, do you support the First Amendment?
As Mr. Britt stated in his email, there's no expectation of privacy in a public building.
The strategic context now that we're going into budget season, it's of course, part of a larger picture of where we want to go, where do we want to go, and I don't know what's quite going on with the audio here. Someone's feedback here. On the computer? It is. It is off. It could have been someone else on Zoom. So yes, please mute your mics so we don't get feedback here in council chambers.
One other thing to note, in addition to that one time or those large capital expenditures, that is something the mayor said a few times, which is just we have increased costs. Inflation is something that we have had to grapple with in a way that we haven't in the past few years when we put together this budget. And there's a couple areas where this hit us particularly hard. Fuel is one. So anybody who's gone to the gas pump in the last few months knows this. The city has over 1,000 vehicles that we drive, and particularly in departments like police, fire, solid waste. There's the increase in gas costs and diesel cost hits pretty hard. And so we went from in 2022 budgeting about $2.30 a gallon to in 2023 budgeting over $4 a gallon.
A good idea of what we have as far as vehicles, because mileage has not been kept, gas consumption has not been kept, phantom damage has not been kept. EMA is missing registrations from their car. We have a PSAP truck we haven't a title for. So that's part of the thing, and I am taking the fleet manager out.
A little different. If you could state your name and address for the record,
Yes.
please.
Hello,
Hi.
council people, neighbors. My name is Patricia G. Smith. I live at 817 O'Brien Street, South Bend, Indiana. And it says something about ESP jewelry. When is that going to be removed? Over on Elwood. We've been waiting a long time for that to be removed, and the city decided that they wanted the area over there on Lincoln Way and Wilbur. It's down. That building is down. It was down in about a month and a half. We've been waiting forever for the jewelry place to be removed and made pretty like the place over on Lincoln Way and Wilbur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I don't like the trash in the front. The trash needs to be in the alleys. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Parker, or Mayor Mueller, would you like to address her concerns, please?
Yes, we want to take care of these properties as quickly as possible. The property on Lincoln Way was an emergency demolition order. The Drury site, we are in the process of gaining ownership of the property. We have crossed all of we got the tax deeds certificates from the county commissioners Earlier this year, we moved through the process where the former property owner could contest it. So we're past all of the big hurdles. We are just on the final hurdle of getting full title of this property before doing so. But then, once that happens, then we should be announcing within a matter of weeks a plan and a timeline for dealing with the Drury site.
We were extremely lucky to get Richard as our IT director. You can tell he's very squared away, knows what he's doing, and comes with a wealth of knowledge and stuff from Elkhart. I think you all know that we have had 3 of our people, EMA, are no longer working for us. There was huge issues in that. One that you guys have been a part of trying to update these sirens for a long, long time, which have never been done. Just the other things that have gone on there, from mileage, attendance, and then when the new interim director took over, he found that 2 months of mail was sitting in the mailroom that hadn't been opened, and we are working to try to get all of the paperwork back to the state, because they had forms that were never filled out, turned in, updated, so we're fixing all that is another thing. The other thing that everybody here has worked on, it started with Mark's suggestion for building security. We need to get an executive session with you guys and the people who are doing a proposal. When we met with Sheriff Redmond and Major Noonan, which Bobby Kay and Raphael were there, they cannot staff what we have currently in the county city building. So there's a proposal from Trident Security, which are sworn officers of the South Bend Police who do off-duty work. So we'll present that in an executive session probably next week or whenever y'all can do that. So we're doing that. I thank Corey for hooking us up with Enterprise, because that's going to really give us a good idea of what we have as far as vehicles, because mileage has not been kept, gas consumption has not been kept, phantom damage has not been kept. EMA is missing registrations from their car. We have a PSAP truck we haven't a title for. So that's part of the thing, and I am taking the fleet manager out. We've talked about that with Kim. Until we get our final information from Enterprise to see if we really need that, or they can do it, or a combination of both. So we'll get working on that. We've met with the ERP. I've assigned somebody, called him the 4th commissioner. He will now be working exclusively with Butler and Seneff to get that. Oh, okay, my bad. Either way, 3.5. So his job is now going to be specifically to help them, which I think he brings some level of expertise so they can get that going. That's one of the reasons that we gave. Yeah. Yep. So that's his, so yeah, he knows his stuff, so that'll be good. So that's why we gave a bump to our secretary, our executive secretary, because she's taking a lot of his things that he did, which was a lot of other things, so should be concentrating on that. And one of the things in the budget, and whatever line item that was, there was a contract signed 4 years ago for $750,000 to rent a parking garage for our vehicles that we pay. I don't know what number it's, I think it's $79,000 a year.
79.2.
Okay, so actually Friday I'm going, because I've been told and I haven't seen it yet. Elevators don't work, it's filthy, homeless, it's a bad thing. So if we can get out of that contract, we will, because that's a lot of money just for so many cars, because all of the other cars in our fleet park there. I think some employees park there, but then some employees have to pay. I don't know, it's just kind of bizarre, so we'll check into that. So that's a lot of money for parking, so we'll look at that. And then also some of the parcels, once we clear some of that up, we have in the, Bobby, you remember how many pieces of property we owned in the city? It was over 100, right? All right, it was a lot, at least, so yeah, so once we refine that from who has the exact data, Carlson, we'll come to you and talk, because I'm of the mind of why don't we sell all those things that we have to mow, maintain, give them a citizen to buy them for $1, They have it, they pay taxes, and we get it off our plate. So that's another thing we're working on. We're working on possibly bidding out the rest of snowplow and mowing, because we have way too many miles. We don't have enough people to do that. So we're getting caught up on that, so thank you guys for helping out and giving stuff when we need to do it, and good give and take. We did, or I did, eliminated the county executive, which has been on the plate here for a while, that Andy talked about in his state of the county. My view, that should be my job, or soon-to-be job, or whatever, so we don't need an added layer between us and you and that. And I think there also, at one time, was a projected project manager, which we don't need. So that's collectively us working together and doing things. I think we can handle anything that would arise when we're talking to each other, working with each other, or whatever. So that's a good thing. There's probably stuff I missed, so if y'all have questions.
Let me just sum up the seeded fund, because sometimes we overlook that, and then we decide we'd like to talk about it way late in the game. So seeded fund, which is page 7 for those of you following along at home, is where we catch some additional commissioner expenses, like legal expenses, which are being requested as an increase. We typically spend more than the budget is, so you can either budget more, or you can see the commissioners back next summer for an additional appropriation, your choice. There's also an increase for leaf pickup, which is contractual with the organization that does the leaf pickup. And there's an increase in the line item that we use for demolitions. Over time, we had allowed the demolition line item to drizzle down to almost nothing, and therefore no demolitions were being done on parcels that the county needed to demolish. Well, with this aggressive code enforcement that we're involved in, it may very well be that we're going to need to have some demolition money for some of those parcels in the long range. The increase is $250,000. The actual total is $700,000. So I think that the concept from the budget manager on the 7th floor, Kara, is that she's going to pay her out more than $400,000 in legal fees. The question is whether or not you want to budget it, because we're going to have more than $400,000 in legal fees, or whether or not you want to see it as an additional appropriation next summer. All the above. So I think that attorneys that are on staff have scopes of work that are covered for their $30,000 paychecks, and then everything else they bill at hourly rates.
That's hard for me to believe, because, it just seems like the attorneys, most of the attorneys we have on staff, they're paid more because they look at a piece of paper or something.
Yeah, you may be right on the scope of, I don't know the scope of work that's covered under their salary.
I mean, they take a job as, let's say, a deputy attorney for $30,000, and next thing you know, they're making $100,000.
They are billing for hours, you're right.
We have what, 25, 30 attorneys on staff?
No, we have 4 in the commissioners, 1 in the assessor, 1 in the sheriff, not 20.
I think there's 8 or 9.
Look at ours.
Your council attorney.
But Bob, you're saying the billable hours keep adding up, that that's it, it's getting
It does come up every year, so I'm not discounting your point.
insane.
So then why don't we get a track of it and leave it as is and have them come and justify it?
I think that's what we've done in years past. We've had the same exact conversation.
Was it high last year because of the redistricting stuff?
Well, there have been one-offs. Redistricting was the fun one this last year.
My suggestion is $5,000. And look at that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you're welcome. That's what I'm saying, that's exactly what I'm saying. Keep it and let them come back and tell us why they need it.
And maybe instead of waiting until they're out of money, you could request some type of quarterly update on what we spent our legal fees on.
There you go,
So it's not surprising.
there you go.
I think you're going to find it's normal stuff, so I'm not actually trying to make it sound sarcastic.
Yeah, but then that alleviates the speculation.
So you want us, or we can,
That's right. That's right.
Correct.
okay, I can retro that and ask them to send us what they've spent the money on this year,
That'd be great.
and that's a good, we can quarterly, hey, y'all need to tell us.
So this, on page 7, you're saying instead of 700,000, we
I think that's what Corey said, that there was one of 9.
And if this was a guy, we're just arguing about $450,000 to $500,000 for about 30 minutes.
And one more thing that we're checking on is, we've talked about a redevelopment of their salaries of how much money redevelopment should be paying that. So once we get that stuff, we'll put that in.
How much are we paying the attorneys to figure that out?
We should have went to law school.
This is where we take a shot at Steve.
I should have studied in school.
He only gets a salary from the commissioner's budget. All other time is billed as incurred. The election board doesn't have a separate line item for attorneys, so he's just billing for that.
I should have studied more in school. I should have studied. Shouldn't have dropped out of high school. No, that's a good point to find, because I get you all, it's a good gig.
So, yes, we have a contract, and I don't remember what the old price was. Wasn't it like $2 million at one point in time?
We were paying 1.2 and it was gonna go to 1.7 and then 2.3.
But you're right, it does seem like it has creeped back up.
Should I call Mish and, that's a joke. Bob, how long ago was that you guys, a couple years ago, did a?
Well, this says it's a 2022, this says it's a 2022 through 2027 contract. So was it just a year ago, probably?
Yeah, it's all set. I mean, it's a different.
Would we all like copies of that contract? I mean, it's a public document. No, Kara can pull it.
Kara, yeah, I'll check, I'll have Kara check that.
Because what's the use of looking at it?
2027.
Yeah, 2027. And it's got built-in escalators. Now, Bob, you also have mentioned in the past that you felt like there were some things that were gray in the contract, like who pays for what, fuel, or who pays for where he dumps leaves. I don't know the contract well enough to answer that.
Well, part of the contract is he was expecting to purchase or lease new equipment too, so I guess maybe there'd be a reason to look to make sure that actually happened, if that's the case. New lights?
It sat at Corey's house all last October.
Something about the trees.
If I may, under this contract, what does the commissioner make now under this? It's 5% increase.
So, 50,400 for a regular commissioner, and 55,440 for a presidential commissioner.
That's a president.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, they do not check in on Cronus. Elected officials don't have to. Demolitions. The request was that we hold additional dollars there in that line item for demolitions. It was the only reason. There's really very little else paid out of that, though. Space studies, we haven't done a space study.
$450,000 for demolition.
Well, if you recall, we're trying to get $500,000 from South Bend just to do the current list of demolitions, so it could be that much a year.
So there's 450 here and then
She had what,
we had 100.
yeah, I think she has 100 in her budget.
See, that, like, the thing like, that building at Portage Manor, remember? They started at 450, da-da-da-da, and when we were out there, like, I think we, or whoever's an expert in that, this is greatly exaggerated of what they're asking for. And like, when we had that businessman we took to tour the other day, and he said he could knock that down for like 40,000. Like, so there's a disconnect, so I guess we need to go look at, could that something be done in-house down the road or whatever? But for us to be getting bids out for, what was that, 30 by 40 building, 450,000 is crazy. So, but that's the part of what Abby, and they're going to be increasing with the new code stuff and paying more attention to buildings that are horrible, because there was never really a big budget. But I think, the way I'm looking at it, we, or me or whoever, we need to go find somebody that can take these down at, that price is crazy. So,
accidental demolitions, accidental demolitions, accidental demolitions, accidental demolitions.
But
We're at the end of Adams Road.
no, but I'm sure we can go find some contractors that would love the work.
From what I'm seeing,
I'm sure we could find some contractors who would love the work.
what I'm saying,
'Cause again, there's some people, well, we didn't get the right paper, we'll help you get the paperwork, you'd get it.
Actually, the conversation we were having recently was not to use ARP, but it was to use this money from South Bend. We were hoping to not use ARP, yeah.
We haven't budgeted the revenue from South Bend because we don't know for sure if they're going to pay. I mean, if we could, if we think that we have a reasonable chance, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I sent a letter to their controller about 2 months ago and he didn't respond. The building department, that is a joint county-city building department, has cash reserves that have built up over the last 20 years, and there's enough money, we think, to pay us out about $500,000, and they could pay themselves out, to lower those cash reserves where each entity could take a little bit of money out of the fund. It's all provided for in the contract, but the contract is real old, it's like 20 years old.
and if he didn't respond, that's not a good sign.
That means he's stalling, or...
There was
yeah.
a response.
Oh, you got to...
Yeah, I don't know who was on what email, so the two attorneys are talking to each other, the South Bend attorney and the county attorney, about writing a new building department agreement. Sorry, I know that's sarcastic, but it's true. The following page, if you're ready for it, is page 9, which is a budget that John has put in the book here in the last couple of years, which is our workers' comp and liability fund. We grab dollars from all the different departments that owe liability checks to the county because they may have lawsuits that need to be handled or settled, and we put those into this fund to pay out things that are related to liability. The commissioner just told you that he wants to remove the fleet manager from this request, so John can take the fleet manager out. We've already put the insurance investigator back into the general fund with the rest of the HR department, so the only person left in this fund would be the risk manager or risk coordinator, I think,
The safety director now.
safety director.
And that person will now be in charge. I took away Brian's, because at the last meetings, when I think you guys asked the sheriff, who does the panic buttons, da-da-da-da, they said maintenance, maintenance said sheriff. So I ended that, so Mr. Yeary is now going to be in charge of all of the cameras in this building, which don't work, and all of the panic buttons, we're missing 35, so that will all be his, so that's off Brian's plate, so he worries about maintenance. So Robert will get that done on that, so.
You may have remembered a couple departments complained because their liability transfer was changed. PSAPs was probably the largest jump, and that was because John reran the liability allocation to those funds. And it was fair, they just didn't like theirs going up. The only employee in this fund got a 5% raise as well. One person left, safety director. That's the entire commissioners. Fire away if you have other questions for Derek.
This one's going to pay 60 after that.
Yep. We'll spend it. Liability happens. You can put that on a t-shirt.
I sell a lot of those t-shirts. There'd be like 7 actuaries waiting.
Oh, and then one more thing from EMA, there was a vehicle that nobody knew where it was, a part of EMA, and we found out at the garage of Riverside, so that's being brought back, and they'll probably go to IT because they asked for a car to do their thing, and then all the other property that everybody kind of worked on, especially Bobby, of the stuff that's been laying up behind Dukem and the county police station for decades or whatever, just about all of it is sold off, but I'm trying to find out, once the money comes in, it's an online auction that we apparently hooked up with, if that goes into the general fund, I don't know, but they all, what do we have, 30 trucks back there, plows, all kinds of stuff sitting back there for probably decades.
And we found some at 40 Commander the other day.
Yeah.
There were 3, 4 back over there.
Bobby, what would your call of an auction, what would that stuff be worth? Because some of those trucks, could probably be used as opposed to just junked.
Well, they could have been used if people begging for those trucks, so we could get individual movement to get them sold, fortunately they didn't. But now with this, they just rushed through there. I mean, I'd be lucky we got 70,000.
Yeah, so I'll find out from once they do all that. I think at the end, all the other stuff that just may be scrapped, I don't know, we'll find. So thanks to Bobby, he took me out there, what is all this? Whatever. So that's another thing that we can tighten up and go from there.
Good job.
Thank you.
Anything else for commissioners?
I'll hook up with you on that demolition stuff.
Last for tonight is council.
That's good.
Actually, I think that Mr. File's going to tell you it doesn't, because the commissioners, if they're going to get a 5% raise, he's going to make a case that you guys should give yourself something.
Of course.
I know, I was just saying it for you.
I mean, my lord, we'd be making, maybe $25,000. That'd be 11%. Terrible money, 25,000. I mean, for God's sakes, I personally don't, I think it ought to be more than 5%. I think it ought to be, we ought to take it to 25,000. That's what I think.
I'm good with that. Should.
I mean, if a percentage is of 11 doesn't sound good, but 25,000 is very little pay for all the work we do. There's no question about it. We make less than the lowest paid full-time person in the county. So why should we get worried about getting less than the lowest paid full-time person in the county? I don't think.
You looking at me? You should be paid, not that it's in my ballpark, but you should be paid as much as the lowest county employee.
We talked about that last year. I think we blanched when we saw how big that increase looked in percentages. We blanched. You like that word?
I understand that all in one step. I understand, I get that, but now it's time for the next step.
I'll add this just because you're not all responding to that specific first question, but we talked last year about the fact that your executive secretary is very similar to the commissioner's executive secretary, and the commissioners are asking for their executive secretary with added duties to go to $45,000. This would not reflect that big a jump for Jen, so if you wanted her to be at $45,000, we would have to adjust for that.
But I think that you can always pick off people in other places. I don't like that sort of thing. Now, I like her, but I mean, I don't know that that's the right way to do that.
I would assume, I'll just do this for Kim's benefit. Is Kim still here? Yeah. I'll do this for Kim's benefit. I'd assume that when you read this pay study, you're going to find that there needs to be some leveling of titles and pay rates. We currently have, I don't know, something crazy like 1,000 pay rates for 1,400 people. It's nuts.
Want me to pass it out?
Yes, please.
So this would just be one of those situations where you could level. Yes. 8.6% cost of living increase would be quite a bit more sizable than the numbers that we've been looking at. Probably true, probably reflective of the market.
You want to explain it?
But the other problem we got is whether we're gonna go over 80 million.
We are going to go, yes. We already are over 80 million, we're 83 million.
Yeah, I know, but how, by what method we get back to 80 million?
Yes, yes.
I was looking at county council here and county council of $9,809.
So these were coming from Kent, Irwin, Wagner, and Shields. They're the company that is doing the study. Had requests that you guys had that you wanted to see elected officials across some different counties. So they did put this together for you guys to view. Now, which one were you looking at?
County council, of course.
Of course. Which council?
They're gonna just say.
Since you're here, Randy, for the last debate, our council, along with Lake County, is a little bit unique
Yes.
because we've got a fiscal valley and a legislative valley.
Yeah.
Most of the counties, except for Lake and Marion, because they're weird at us, they only do the budget, the fiscal. So they have like 70%.
Not an average.
Yeah.
You really got to look at Lake and Marion, somewhat Marion very good. But they come in, like, county council, have a lot more responsibility than all the other property.
And notably, the commissioners in St. Joe County have much less responsibility, as we do so much more of their work.
In every other county except for Lake, a lot of work we've done is done strictly for commissioners.
So keep that in mind when you're comparing the commissioner salaries.
Yeah, so it goes around country.
We're still way down.
So,
And I guess the other reference is like, with South Bend Council,
I think,
what is it, 7 now?
7 what?
26?
No, I think they're 18.
Huh?
South Bend Council, 18? They're-
Is that it?
It's not Mishawaka.
Hey, Mishawaka, when I left there, we were making $9,000.
If you're worried about the percentage.
It just runs so on its own.
South Bend City Council pay.
Percentage is still 5%.
Okay, instead of 25,000, it's 11%. I get that, but it's certainly, you don't want to go for nothing and then end up with a mess like we had last year.
And I agree with Jeff on that. When I heard you guys hadn't had a raise in years, when I was told that, I said, that's nuts. Sorry.
Right. Well, it took a lot to us.
And then you guys get all grief from the press, or whoever, look at those guys, what I'm saying.
City Council makes, South Bend City Council 20,200.
So anyway, that's my maybe 1%.
Well, I don't think it's a question, but we'll go 5 in the commissioner, I don't think that's.
The commissioners don't have to go to 5.
That's right.
5%.
So where do you want to land? This is your last one of the evening. Sometimes we don't land at all, we just glide by.
I do tend to agree that whatever we do percentage-wise for the commission, I think we should do for the council, and I do think that we should find parity for our secretaries.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I guess if we're at it, I think that whatever percentage we give the county attorney, we should give our attorney.
I do appreciate some of the departments that agreed to reduce headcount and reorganize, and take advantage of technology. I think that, like Brian, agreeing to reduce headcount so that he could pay people more on spot pricing to get people in the door. Hopefully that reflects a trend where we don't have 1,400 people this time next year. We have 1,350 people this time next year. We'll run some numbers on threes. Remember, you have the sheriff and the prosecutor coming back next Tuesday, and they've been told to bring in numbers that are very close to 5%, which would be huge if they even bring anything close.
Okay, let me ask you this question. What percentage of the sheriff's budget is already contracted for with the union?
A lot, because you already are under
They're in there for
3-year
5.5.
contract for 5% increase.
Aren't they at 5.5? Is that approved, something like that?
5.
Okay, let's, how about this? Let's go with the prosecutor and the sheriff, because to me, they're two of the biggest, and they are, you guys might not agree with me, but because of, they're so instrumental with their duties to this county as far as public safety. Let's see what they come back with at the plus of 5, and then run us the numbers on everyone else that's approved. How about that? At least for start.
Well,
At least for start.
well, that's.
See how close we get to the 8.
One other thing that maybe we should consider are the departments that, like the health department, which has requested some bigger than 3, but also made a ton of grant money. Do we, so do we account for that in the budgeting process?
I think we do.
I mean, especially
I
like
think we do.
discretionary revenue.
I think we do. I'm glad you said that.
And
Mark,
Mark's right.
Mark, you even agreed with that last time.
Any department
To a
that.
point.
Joe's a smart kid.
Don't be convinced they're structurally sound. Yeah.
Okay.
We got.
At least we have some.
Oh, you know how much he's making?
Nobody does.
You don't want to give a shit about what they think.
All right? Good? At least for starters? To move forward?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
What time are we next Tuesday, 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
Do you want JJC?
I would agree with that.
They're the one other outlier that they are asking for big increases, but they're also offering to give you some money. We haven't said anything to them.
What would be the point to bring them back unless we did? I'm not arguing you should. I think you should tell them what we don't like. Right, yeah, no,
You want to tell them 5% and see what they come back with?
Yes.
You want John to tell them that, or you want me to tell them?
Both.
I would Kyle to tell them that. When are they going to come back?
What's that?
Did they already take care of the court reporters?
That happened mid-year.
Because that's the other thing, where like the percentages might get picked up.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of them will be higher than 5 because we're working off of amended budgets.
Well, but also, I mean,
Right.
like, between
You're right.
commissioner, secretary, and our secretary, if we're going to sit down,
I
There will be some targets.
I will. I sent it to him because I saw he was virtual, and I knew I was here and I was going to give it out and see if he had any questions. Because we started on the job classification, which is going to help in structure a little better for apples to apples comparison, because right now it's not there. Our job descriptions are all, we've got not even, yeah, it's, because the jobs were left to the department's discretion in categorizing it, writing up, so it's got to be a cleanup.
What's that? It's like all his raises, less like I just give you mine. Yeah.
Good work, John.
well, I mean, most of the measures of it, I was space tank done in the class.
It's funny, the things that make people think we made a decision.
Hey, Joe, just off the bat, we're 20%. Council, you know we're good. How about, so,
My argument for sometime
make sure you guys work that out. Come on, Don, let's go there.
That was a good day. I think I've been in this building for 12
That's a
hours.
good thing, because I think those cats are like at 3 something an hour. Nobody's really attorneys? They're bumping up like dollars.
They're at 250. I think you guys decided to. Somebody's got to raise taxes. Somebody's got to raise taxes. Somebody's got to raise taxes. Somebody's got to raise taxes.
Exactly.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Hang on another note. Me and some of the other fire chiefs got together at Al's, trying to make ASIM connection, management, trying to put downstate some funding. And we
Add that.
That's a long list, right? Appreciate it.
We have many conversations, and my sentiments have always remained since day one. I mean,
And I'm always going to come at this from the position of like, what's the best for all of us.
yeah.
Because it's about all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it ain't about point and click. It's not about point and click.
No, and that's the thing. I don't think any one entity can come up with a solution. The solution is about people. That's what we all are here for. We're all here for people, right? So in that sense, it's everybody. All
They said so wrong for me. They said like how you take care of your seniors, your elders. It's really a statement about what level of moral your community is. And I think it's true about how we take care of those who have mental issues. How well we can protect and take care of those folks. It's a measure of just how solid a community is. And we can't leave it like that hanging.
No.
And it has to be like contained and cleaned up.
And we want to be proactive, right? We want to have these conversations, and we want to be proactive as far as trying to find some type of solution or resolution to it, right? But at the same time, we've been having these conversations long before today. I mean, this message has been reiterated for many years. Many years. And it's not, unfortunately, it's not until we get yes, when the outcome doesn't happen the way that everybody wants it to happen, it's not ideal, then everybody wants to speak. As long as everything's nice and quiet, oh, they're fine with it. There's no problem.
Everybody have a good day.
It is frustrating, and I know I alluded to you, but I'll tell you. 4 days ago, we had an incident where we had been dealing with this lady as police time and time again, and that day was no different. So we called the mobile team. They literally came out, talked to her for 2 or 3 minutes, put her in their van, and drove her to Howard Park and dropped her off. I am not shitting. So with that being said, what happens? We get called, and we had to do a 24-hour on her because it was that bad. Yesterday morning, this is even better. Dukem Center calls. We got a guy, blah blah blah, wants to do a self-committal. So okay, we drive out there to Dukem Center. We take this person to the hospital. Well, I mean, we are stewards of everyone, so again, they're short-staffed as well, and to me, it's a little cleaner and safer that way. We have recordings in the cars just in case something, so it's a little better that way. And theoretically, hey, I want to check myself in, right? Well, he knew what he was doing, or she, but anyway, they get to their location, Epworth, and after 2 hours, like, I'm done, I'm out of here, I don't want this. And you can't stop them because it's self. So we get a call going, hey, this guy wants to leave. Well, you're in custody, right? It's still a lot less invasive than a jail or a prison is, but you're still in custody. You have mechanisms in place that a judge ordered. So we go pick him up and we take him back. They're like, yeah, no, that ain't happening. We can't because of what happened here. So they wouldn't even open the door. They're like, yeah, no, he's staying with you. So like we go back to Epworth and they're like, no, he checked himself out. We can't force him. Literally, we are stuck with this dude.
Had to just put him on the street.
That we had to go back to the doctor, the same doctor that says, no, we have to release him, blah, blah, blah. Luckily, we were able to, they had all the information, Dukem. Epworth had X amount of information. We had no information. We picked at A and dropped off at B. Now, in between, we have to figure all this out. So luckily, our captain got involved, and he was able to talk to this doctor and go, look, this is the predicament we're in. I don't want, because if something's bad he's going to do something to someone. And on top of that, you still have believe it or not, a court mechanism in place that you're telling a judge, screw you, I don't care what you signed on that paper, we're not doing it. Which we're awfully close to doing, but then an officer gets held in contempt of court. That's not a pretty thing. So luckily, the doctor conceded and actually got a 5-day hold based on going back through old stuff that he was able to dig up and incorporate, and not like in a bad way, but holy crap, yeah, maybe we need to do something here. So that's how that, but in the meantime, here we are, hour and a half, 2 hours, that we're taking 3 cops now off the streets. When you need to call 911, sorry, it's going to be a while. These are the type of things and it's 2 in the morning, so nobody really cares. You know what I mean? I do, because I'm the one getting the texts and the phone calls and trying to figure this out after an hour and a half sleep. You know what I mean? And that's what's more frustrating about anything. And these happen all the time. They're like, oh no, chief, I'm like, well, why are you not telling me these things? Because you got enough, etc. So, again, I think the brass tacks of everything is, man, there's got to be something. And I don't want to that's not our job. Like, I can literally tell you that is not our job. But it has been since I've been a cop. Why? And nobody can answer that.
Well, because no one else is doing it. There's no other mechanism in place.
Right.
That's fine with it in a way that doesn't put it squarely on your plate.
Yep.
And that's part of what needs to change again. Because ultimately you're going to take several moving pieces that you pull this together. And which doesn't involve you, it's going to involve both of you, but not just you.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually all for that. They're not a cop going to say no to that.
That's the main point, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the main point.
Yeah, no.
We understand that we're going to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't just be, Scott, solve it, figure this out. Or figure this out.
Well, that was another, I could not even understand that. Well, fire department, like, are you kidding me? Like, it's bad enough that these poor firefighters go out on 600 block of Johnson Street while shots are still being fired.
Yeah.
Like, we are there trying to get through this crowd. They're telling all the cops, you wouldn't believe it. F you ain't doing, would not move. We got a guy shot, and the medics can't even we can't get to him, let alone the medics. And then the medics get there, shots ring out again, and they're like, hey, they don't, right.
Yeah,
They ain't supposed to get shot. Like cops, okay.
Y'all kind of soldiers.
Yeah. Like, man, they're like, nah, man, there ain't nothing we can do, man. We'll sit back and if you can get somebody out of there and bring them to us, and that's what I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Now I know a lot of cops were mad about that, but how do you blame them?
Yeah.
I mean that little Kevlar or whatever you use in your jackets ain't stopping nothing. I can tell you that right now.
So for both of you, if there's anything I can do that can move this along and be supportive or whatever, it's like,
You will. You're going to be one of the facilitators at that CAG meeting, right?
I will.
When Shay called me, I'm like, yeah, Dr. Hiller do it. Regardless of what he thinks, it doesn't matter. He knows how to facilitate these things. He knows how to go, look, good, bad, or indifferent is irrelevant. We need to get something when we discuss policies. What do we do moving forward? How can we do this? You were the first person that came to mind.
I'll do it. That would be helpful.
No, it's on August 23rd.
Already have it.
Brown Middle, yeah.
Yeah.
And then anybody else you could think of who could be a table facilitator. But I told her, I said, nobody's going to be able to lay it out like you do, because you understand, unfortunately, sadly probably, both perspectives. I know there's more than two, but at least initially, community police, because that seems to be the focus right now.
And I have no judgment. It's not about pointing fingers. I'm not about trying to, and I'm not trying to get nothing for me out of it. So
Right.
I just want everybody to be good.
Yeah.
I want everybody to go home at night, hug the babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you got it.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bud, man.
Chief, that guy who stiffed the president for all that long.
You want to talk to those three guys?
I want to give one to the police officer.
Oh, okay. Can you do that? Can we do that? I guess you could. Yeah, I mean, it's Mark Walsh. I mean, you guys actually said yes to his retirement when he left, and he just immediately stepped in there.
Well, it'd almost be like as a community member too.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna give you one.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm president, I can do
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I can hide files.
Yeah, because aren't these the ones that are serial numbered? Or no? I don't remember.
We talked about that.
Well, that's the no. Yeah, that's the captain's coins, I think, that are serial numbered. But yeah, I'll check and, do we have it? I think we have some of these, just in case. Yeah, I'll ask Dawn. And I'll shoot you a text and let you know if we have them. If not, then.
Hold on a second. I can work on together because I have to sure your seat belted in.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry about that. I thought.
Okay, don't let anybody see you. That's a good story. That should be. Okay. Have you seen, the grandson at all or not?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Can I tell you that our son in the FBI ended up in Ukraine with our...
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Mar-a-Lago, and I'm gonna be like, what?
He's really pissed off about that.
Oh, I mean, all the true, yeah.
It diverts all the other stuff
Yep.
that they're doing.
Why is he in Ukraine?
Every now and then, he was on hostage rescue. And then when you get some high-profile people that are going
Wanna go over there,
it
yeah.
gives, or vacation, it gives their security team some time off. So
Yeah.
he's over there. I don't have a picture, but I get this call on Monday after Father's Day. Hey, Dad, sorry I missed you. I'm in Poland.
Don't want to get
So
more.
he was there, then he finds out he goes into Ukraine. And it's a picture of when they,
All right, sir.
when people leave, they stand for a picture with people provide security.
Yeah. Oh.
So he's there, and he's got a sport with 6 guys from hostage rescue who are full camo. Automatic rifles,
Yeah.
meter and shit. One guy's got this big beard, and I said, that guy could start his own survival reality
Yeah.
TV show.
And he's all dressed up.
But I think, yeah, he was never on, he got into some nasty stuff, but he was never
Yeah,
on the
on the initial detail, yeah, the initial in-ground, or I forgot what they call it.
He did that for the director one time too.
Yeah, it's tough over there, because, like, quite frankly, I don't know who you believe over there. You know what I mean? There's so much nefarious stuff going on over there. And like all my FBI contacts here, or within the area, because I went to the FBI Academy as well, that they are just fit to be tied of how this whole thing is going out, and knowing that whole Peter Strzok debacle where he's texting going, yeah, we'll ensure that I'm like, oh my God, whether you like Trump or not, that is irrelevant. What is going on is like so horrendous. And here we're required to have body cams, right? You mean to tell me that not one of those agents, nobody videoed any of that search? They tell the people at Mar-a-Lago it's one of the security cameras, we shut them down. They actually had agents staying there to make sure that those cameras stayed off.
I thought they refused to turn them off.
Well, they fought back and they made them. I just don't understand that. I have my
As Mr. Britt stated in his email, there's no expectation of privacy in a public building.
One email, which was sent by one of his employees on January 21 of this year, shows Mr. Castellan left for Florida in December. And the board has that email. I can answer any questions later about these emails if you have them. And in another email sent to one of his employees on July 2 of this year, Mr. Castellan stated that his intention was to complete some paperwork and tells the employee, "Remind me when I get back," suggesting he was in Florida at the time. I'd next like to discuss Exhibit B of my challenge, which includes Facebook photos documenting Mr. Castellan's presence in Florida. The photos are in chronological order, and they confirm that Mr. Castellan was in Florida last year on April 13, April 14, May 9, May 28, June 2, June 15, July 4, July 17, July 27, and October 11. And for this year, the photos show he was in Florida on January 2, March 6, March 13, April 15, April 30, June 19, and June 27. In conclusion, there is nothing about having an apartment in St. Joseph County with a finite lease that proves Mr. Castellan lives here permanently or intends to move back here from Florida. Nor does the vacant lot on South Kentucky Street in South Bend that was transferred in June to Mr. Castellan for $10 by a quitclaim deed. According to an article published July 8 by the South Bend Tribune, when asked what his plans are for that lot, Mr. Castellan said, "I don't know. We just bought the land with the intention of maybe building a house. We haven't really talked about that." Based on the Indiana Code sections I've noted and the documents in the record, I believe Mr. Castellan's own evidence not only supports the conclusion he is a Florida resident, but that he has also given up any Indiana residency and isn't legally qualified to run for county assessor. So I'd like to thank the board for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add in terms of the way of testimony on your own?
Not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Masters, any questions for Mr. Booker?
Mr. Booker, where do you reside?
4417 Irish Hills Drive, apartment 3C, South Bend.
And how long have you resided there?
Since October of last year.
And prior to that, where did you reside?
I resided in Elkhart, Indiana.
So, do I take it from your testimony that you moved into St. Joseph County 1 month before the filing deadline to run for county assessor last year?
I will simply say that I met the residency requirements under the Indiana Code.
So you moved in 1 month before the filing deadline, is that correct?
I'll just say that I met the requirements.
Would you direct the witness to answer
I'm
the
not-
question?
I'm not sure.
Yes or no?
Mr. Masters, that depends on a determination as to what
I
the
did-
filing deadline is. My understanding of filing deadline
I-
for candidacy is in January of each year, January to February.
I believe that
Sorry, let me rephrase that. Did you move in 1 month before the residency requirement to run for county assessor?
I believe the requirement that Mr. Masters is alluding to is that a candidate must live in the county at least a year before the election in question, and I've met that requirement.
By moving in 1 month before the time deadline?
Mr. Masters, I think you've made your point, Mr. Masters. We understand.
I don't see why.
Where do you work, sir?
I work for the Elkhart County Assessor's Office in the Appeals Department.
Have you ever been an assessor in St. Joseph County?
I haven't.
Have you ever done any assessing work in St. Joseph County?
I haven't.
Can you estimate for the year 2021 how many weeks you would have been down in Florida?
Not off the top of the head, because I didn't take often full weeks. I would take, like I said before, on a Thursday to a Monday, or sometimes I would do Tuesday to Thursday, just depending on whether or not, what my schedule was with the taxpayers.
So are we looking at 4 weeks, 8 weeks? I mean, what's your best sense of that?
I'd have to go back and look at the records. I couldn't tell you the exact time.
Are there specific duties, other than, of course, your interaction with taxpayers, are there specific duties that you have here that require your physical presence?
Yes, so anytime that we have to talk about budgets, I have to be here. Anytime that the county assessor requires me a personal meeting, I have to be here. Typically, that's one time a month. And then any other situation that would be required by local government.
Okay, and did those meetings take place regularly during 2021?
They did.
And you did attend those in person?
I did all but maybe one or two where I sent my staff members for training purposes.
In, it looks like February of 2022, you and your wife filed a joint federal tax return and a joint Indiana state tax return, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in both of those, well, first of all, the copies we have are not signed, and there's no mark on it that indicates that it was filed. I presume that these, in fact, are the true and correct copies that were filed respectively with the IRS and with the Indiana Department of Revenue?
That's correct. Those are the copies that came from my CPA.
In the tax returns, you do mention a daughter who is a dependent, and she is listed as a claim for a credit as a dependent. How old is that dependent?
She's above 18 now.
Was she at the time the return was filed?
She would have turned 18 in November of last year.
And is she in school at this point?
She graduated. She
Graduated
graduated from
high
high school
school.
last year, yeah.
On the Indiana tax return, there is an indication, the return is set up so that you have to indicate the county in which you lived and the county in which you worked, and that is 71, which is St. Joseph County. Also the county where your spouse lived and the county where your spouse worked, and that is also 71, which is St. Joseph County. How do you square that with the claim that your wife made with respect to being a full-time resident of the state of Florida?
I don't understand the question. I mean,
okay. So there's in order to, and I don't want to get into Indiana tax law, there just seems to be some kind of an inconsistency between claiming an Indiana income tax return, residency and working, and the application that was made in Florida. Do you see any contradiction there?
well, I'm not a lawyer, but I would assume that if you spent more than 183 days in the state of Indiana under tax code, you would have to file in the state of Indiana.
Okay. I believe there's a partial year resident form that can be filed. Again, I'm not a tax lawyer either, so I don't know the answer to that question, but.
Mr. Leone, you're going to get this witness all confused because he doesn't really, as he said, he's not going to tell you what Indiana tax law is, but it's simple enough. This is a tax return for the year 2021. And if you look at the application for the homestead exemption that's attached to our motion to dismiss, it's not filed, it's not signed until December 30th of 2021 for the year 2022. So Heather Fite would have been a full-time resident of the state of Indiana for 2021 when she filed this tax return. It's not the date you signed the tax return, it's the year that you're filing it for.
Right. All right. So on December 30th, though, Ms. Fite indicated, as I see the application, she signs under penalties for perjury, I believe, that I am a permanent resident of the state of Florida, and I own and occupy the property above. That's dated December 30th.
Never get your picture taken again, huh?
It's trained you on it, yeah.
Post it on Facebook.
All I can do to get through this.
You got a lot to have your own life. Could be working, could be an FBI agent.
With that is a presumption that the residence of an individual is the place where the person's immediate family resides. And to the extent that Ms. Fight, as of December 30th, declared that Florida was her permanent residence, the question then becomes, does that become the presumptive place where Mr. Castellan resides as well?
I would just like to also go ahead and add, with me not being able to legally make appropriate statements, I would like to say that this will now, with the evidence that was provided on both parts, leave it up to the tax-paying voters of St. Joseph County.
Next item we want to get a status report on is the video recording request. As folks may remember, Ben had made a request for video recordings in the clerk's office as it related to the ballot room, and then later made a request for an APRA request, Access to Public Records Act request, that it was independent and in his own name. I would consider those as somewhat different standards. I think that he has narrowed his request down significantly. The first part was for, I think it was video from 5 cameras for a substantial period of time, and now it's for 1 camera for
the period where absentee ballots began being accepted up to primary day.
Okay.
Just on the one.
Just on the 1 camera that actually looks at the ballot room door.
Yes.
And so because this is an access to public records request, one of the things that we did was we asked the folks at the Election Division and the Secretary of State's office for some input. The feedback that we got was that video recordings are not considered election records as such.
That was the opinion of one attorney from, was it Angie Nessmeyer's attorney?
Right, it was Angie's, and then backed up by Luke Britt also in somewhat forms. We never heard back from the Republican Party at all on it.
Yeah, so the public access counselor weighed in also that these were not election records as such. So to the extent that this is an access to public records request, I think it is a matter that was responded to by the county commissioners, and it's really outside of our jurisdiction since you're going to be receiving it that way. So I think at this point, we're done.
Well, could I ask, what would be the scope if I asked, which I think I did, from my position as an election board member, what sort of scope, did we receive any sort of opinion on what that would entail?
I don't think we did.
Here's the problem is, one of the concerns is it the clerk's office that controls these cameras? Is it the commissioners as the owners of the building that control the cameras? And then is there any issues with privacy, right? As Mr. Britt stated in his email, there's no expectation of privacy in a public building. And so it's an interesting question because I believe the clerk's office got a grant which paid for the cameras, and I believe one of the clerks had access to possibly log in and as well as IT to see what was going on the cameras. And right now, the county is going through a process of putting all of their camera systems in one, and so the sheriff's department and others have access to them. So it's not necessarily owned by the election board or controlled by the election board. So
Certain cameras are, if we would remove those cameras, none of them would be showing any activity in the clerk's office.
Right.
So as it relates to the 1 camera in the hallway, my understanding is the video has been transferred to a separate drive, and that is
Mr.
available,
Warfield is
or-
going to get it to the reduced scope request to me, and I'll be able to provide it to you.
Okay.
So we're okay on that then?
Yes.
Okay, I think at this point, this is no longer, this particular request is no longer an election board issue. On the other hand, I do think that
If I
it's...
could intervene, I do think the key issue is something that should be addressed before fall, just a matter of who has them and how many?
It's next on his agenda.
That's my next item. You're right. You're
I read your mind.
half step ahead of me here. So the other issue that has come up that we've been dealing with is the issue of ballot room keys. And one thing that we need to look at, the statute itself is not particularly helpful. And Rita, what's the Indiana Code site on that again? You gave that to me before.
The Indiana Code 3-11-10-10 states that during the period absentee ballots are received, each county election board shall keep the ballots in a cabinet box or a room, which there are 2 locks, one for each appointed party of the boards. Each day, the absentee ballots shall be placed in the cabinets, boxes, or room under the direction of the appointed members of the board, which would be Mr. Leone and Mr. Horvath. If an appointed member cannot be present each day, then the member shall designate someone from the member's party to be present with the key at the time the ballots are secured in the time the lock is opened the next day. The key of each appointed member shall be kept in a secure manner determined by the appointed member.
So there are some gaps there. One of the issues that we saw was that the county engineer has a key to the, or maybe access to both keys to the room because of the fact that there is equipment. There's HVAC equipment in there, there's electrical equipment, and the county engineer typically has access to everything in case there's an emergency of some sort, whether it be a flood or a fire. We certainly don't want to have ballots, destroyed because it takes a couple of hours to get the keys to get into the room. So this is an issue that I think is important from a number of points of view, and the statute just doesn't give us enough guidance, I think, to kind of go on its own. So I think what we're trying to do is determine best practices. I know that Rita has made some inquiries to other counties and has learned of a number of different procedures, but nothing in writing. Is that my understanding, Rita, that it's available?
Right, and I also talked to the Indiana Election Division again, and they said that the law, their process is stated in the law. It's stated there that there should be 2 separate locks, which we do have. Each board member receives a key, which they did, that the member then who can't make it is supposed to appoint somebody by proxy, and it says nowhere in there that there should be limited keys. And my stance as an elected official and administrator of the elections has a duty to perform and secure the integrity of the election, and if somebody isn't there or unable or a key gets lost, which I've heard from numerous clerks that keys were lost or people weren't showing up, that we still have the responsibility to the voters and to the candidates in St. Joseph County to provide an election. And so be it. If I had to open up the door, the law doesn't say that I couldn't have a key as an elected official to open up that door, along with, as I did do as a gesture of good faith and integrity of the election process, had a person from my office come with me and open up the door.
So what I would like to be able to do is I'd like to put everything in writing so that we have a very clear and specific policy on which the clerk's office can rely and in which the appointed board members can rely as well, but also have input from the county commissioners. The county commissioners have an interest in this room as it relates to the building itself and the safety and security of the entire room. So I think we have to, and also we want to make sure that the room is safe as it relates to the security of the ballots, and that's the key thing that the statute deals with. So I think what we may need to do is to kind of create our policy. We may be the first in the state if nobody else has it, but we need to create a policy and a set of procedures as to what we do under certain circumstances.
Agreed. And I think the Association of Indiana Counties is also reviewing the legislative section of that rule with legislators that, there has to be integrity kept, and nobody is doubting that, you want 2 separate keys, but there's still a responsibility that has to be met.
Yep, and of course, the risk is that we can go ahead and develop a great policy, and then the legislature next February goes ahead and amends the statute in a way that makes us go back and do it all over again. But I still think it's important to go ahead and get this in place, so at least it gives us a foundation on which we can go ahead and everybody can rely on it. Not only us, not only county employees, but also the voters. We want the voters to make sure, to feel comfortable that in fact the integrity of this process is being taken seriously and being handled properly. So we will work on that then to see if we can get this process started.